So Senator Ron Johnson is the other fiscal hawk, along with Rand Paul, that is sharing some pretty deep concerns about the big, beautiful bill that we've spent a lot of this show talking about. We want to bring Senator Johnson on just to get his perspective tonight. And, sir, it's good to have you. Rand Paul says his big problem with this is obviously the debt ceiling, increasing the debt ceiling. There's really probably no way to do this bill without that, as far as I can tell, as far as I understand. What's your position at this hour? Because the president obviously really wants to take this win. And I think the position is that, maybe you're being too greedy with how much you want to cut right here out of the gate after we've built up all this spending over all these years. What's your position?
First of all, I would have goals going into a budget reconciliation process, and my first goal would be to not increase the deficit, certainly try and reduce or bend the deficit curve down. We're not doing that. So I'm focusing, for example, on the CBO's 10-year budget outlook. And what that tells us is we'll spend about $89 trillion, add about $22 trillion to our nation's debt, or run those deficits over the next 10 years, which means that's an average deficit of about $2.2 trillion a year. Now, that ramps up from about 1.9 up to about 2.5. Clearly, we are increasing the deficit trajectory. So we can argue over the exact score on this particular bill, but it's pretty undeniable. The trajectory is up. President Trump, and I appreciate this in the State of the Union, he said he was going to do what we haven't done in 24 years, balance the federal budget. Well, you're not going to balance the federal budget if you're allowing deficits to grow. The House bill, unfortunately, does many good things. Obviously, I don't want a tax increase. We need to take that off the table. We're going to have to increase the debt ceiling. I've never voted for that before, but I will if we do enough to return to a pre-pandemic level of spending and institute a process to achieve it and make broad. Yeah. I'm pretty flexible within those guidelines, but you have to focus on the long-term trajectory of our deficit, and right now it's going up. It's skyrocketing, and it's unsustainable.
So when Bessent, it says that it's, it's taken us a long time to get to this insane level of spending that we're at. This was a long process of growth of government, and a lot of it happened during COVID. He's basically saying we're going to try and bring it down, but we're going to try and bring it down in a stable way that's responsible. You don't think that holds water? You think that we're actually going to make the problem worse with this new bill? We're going to spend even more?
Yeah, listen, that's arguable, but nobody can predict the future. But what is inarguable is we had an unprecedented level of spending over the last 6 years. 2019, we spent $4.4 trillion. This year, we'll spend over $7 trillion. That's a 58% increase. Again, it's unprecedented.
Yeah, I know.
We went from President Trump in his first 3 years averaging about $810 billion in deficit spending. Then, of course, COVID, $3.1 trillion deficit. But we should have returned to at least less than $1 trillion. Biden averaged $1.9 trillion in deficits. And that's locked in now. Now it's just going to continue to grow from that point. We can't accept that as the new normal.
These guys all want the same thing that you do. I mean, I truly believe that Trump doesn't want to bankrupt this country. I don't think Scott Bessent does either. Why is it that you say that and you have your convictions here? Why can't they do it? Why is it impossible for it to be done, I guess is the question.
I guess it's hard. But again, the beauty is President Trump and Elon Musk showed us how to do it. Contract by contract, line by line, program by program. You realize there's over 2,600 programs in the federal government, over 2,000 lines of budget. If you look at that forensically, if you do the work, there's got to be hundreds of billions of dollars. If you don't spend it, nobody would even know other than the grifters who are sucking down that waste, fraud, and abuse.
I got 10 seconds left. When you say this to them, what's the response? I'm sure you've talked to Bessent, you've talked to Russ Vought and all these guys. What do they say?
Nobody can disagree. They just, look down at their shoes and, just that indicates to me that it's kind of hard to do. I realize that, but we have to do it. We have to do it.
Senator Ron Johnson, it's a good fight. It's a worthy fight. I know you're taking a lot of heat, and Rand Paul is too right now, but we appreciate you coming on. Thank you, sir.
Have a great night.
Everybody's reporting the same stories, the same spin. You turn the channel, it's always the same. But not us. We're different. We report the real news. No spin, just the facts. Turn to us, and you won't turn back.
Tune in to Rob Schmidt tonight on Newsmax.